Hello, everybody. Welcome to Formulas and Life Hacks for the Everyday Admin. My name is Steve Molis, or if you remember the Salesforce Trailblazer community, you may know me as Steve Mo. And first and foremost, I would like to give a huge thank you to all of our incredible sponsors. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Salesforce MVP. I was part of the inaugural class back in 2010. I'm a member of the Salesforce Power of Us Hub. I'm also a Salesforce Ranger. I finally got my 100th Trailhead badge, and I'm a community college dropout, or as we say here in the United States, daycare for 18 to 24-year-olds. And I'm a self-taught Salesforce admin and a world record holder. I hold the world record for the most times the speaker at Dreamforce has dropped the F-bomb during their presentation. So with that in mind, Salesforce has told me that I need to have my own safe harbor slide. I'll try to keep it PG-13 today, though. So here's some of the formulas I want to share with you. The first one is this. This is a formula that I wrote to calculate the percent of business days remaining in the current month so that someone could do prorating invoices. And next to it is a Victorinox Swiss Champ VATX pocket knife. It's got 84 tools. It costs $500 and it weighs nearly 1 pound. And this is the Power of One. And this is my favorite formula in the whole world. It wasn't created by me. It was created by a guy named Tom Tobin from Salesforce. And next to it is my favorite pocket knife. It opens bottles of beer and it opens bottles of wine, and I use it every single day. And it doesn't weigh a pound, and it doesn't cost $500. And the formulas I'm going to show you in this presentation aren't like the $500 pocket knife that weighs a pound. How many people need a pocket knife that weighs a pound or can spend $500 on a pocket knife? The formulas that I'm going to show you in this presentation are simple but powerful formulas that you can use every day, whether you're on Lightning or Classic, whether you're on Unlimited Edition or Professional or Group, regardless of your company's business model, whether you're in high tech, services, or nonprofit. These are simple plug and play formulas. A lot of them that you'll be able to copy and paste right out of the slides in this presentation and put into your own org. So I'm going to show you how to create some formulas that will allow you to create dynamic reports created by current user, year to date, dynamically counting the days until or since the opportunity close date, how to test validation rule formula logic, and how to create sales versus goal reports and dashboard. So the first one I call created by custom current user. And it actually came from a question that somebody posted in the Salesforce Answers community. This person, Sophie Curtis, needed to create a report or a list view that would show all the activities that a user created. But Sophie had a unique situation where she worked. She had a team of people who would create activities and then assign them to other users, but they needed to be able to run a report or look at a list view and see what the status was of the activities that they created and assigned. Now, if you've ever created a report or a list view in Salesforce, I'm sure you've seen the My Activities filter, My Leads, My Accounts, My Contacts, My Opportunities. The me in My is the user who owns those records. But in Sophie's case, those people no longer own those activities. They had created them and assigned them to somebody else. And there is no equivalent for the person who created that record. But Sophie didn't want to have to create a separate report or list view for every single user and manually add a filter like created by equals Mike, created by equals Mary, created by equals Jane, created by equals Bob. And then a month later, if they add a custom field to the object, she now needs to update 20, 30 reports and list views just to add that one field. Or maybe they don't like the pie chart and they want it to be a funnel chart. So she's got to edit 20, 30 reports just to change the chart from pie to funnel. She wanted one report, one list view that anyone could run anytime, and it would behave much like the My Activities filter. So to solve this, I used a field called created by ID, a thing called $user ID, and an equals operator. Now, if you've ever created a formula field or a validation rule and you in the formula editor, you click the insert field button. Well, at the top, you see the object that you're on, and next to it, you see the list of fields on that object. But below it, you see these things with these dollar signs on. Those are called global variables, and a global variable is called $user. $user represents the user who's logged in at that moment doing that thing, whatever that thing is. If you're running a report, your $user. If you're looking at a list view, your $user. If you're creating a record, your $user. If you're editing a record, your $user. If you're looking at a record, your $user. Every single person is $user when they're logged in. So I created a custom formula field on the object, and you can create this on any object you need this on. Create a custom formula field that returns a checkbox result. Then, using the insert field button, I grab the $user user ID. That's the ID on the user detail record of the person who's looking at this report or list view or record at this time. Then I add an equals operator, and using the insert field button, I simply grab the created by ID field. If the ID of the person looking at this record or running this report or this list view is equal to the ID of the person who created this record, the formula will return a checked checkbox or a true checkbox. If they're not equal, it returns a false or an unchecked checkbox. So the second I hit save, I can now create a report or a list view that shows the fields my formula is evaluating side by side with my formula checkbox field, and I can verify that my formula is working exactly as I want it to. Every single record that I created, whether I own it or not, has a checked checkbox. Any record that I didn't create, even if I'm now the current owner, has an unchecked checkbox. So now I can grab any report or list view and grab my shiny new created by user field, and you can call it whatever you want, it's your org, and I simply set my filter criteria to is the checkbox true? And now, using any report or list view, I can see all the records that I created, whether I own them or not. It's a simple formula checkbox fill. And the cool thing is, it will work with nearly any field on the user object and any lookup field. It doesn't have to be created by. It can be last modified by. It can be a custom lookup field on the object. It doesn't have to be the user ID. It can be the user profile. It can be the user role. It can be a custom field on the user object. But it's just a simple formula checkbox that's comparing those two things to each other and returning a true or checked checkbox or a false or unchecked checkbox. And now with one report, one list view, you don't have to have a separate report or list view for every single user. Simple but powerful formula. So the next one, this is a formula I created in my own instance to create dynamic year-to-date reports. So I was given a requirement by my users to create a report that shows our year-to-date sales, comparing them to the same period the previous year, the year before that, the year before that. Now, the users, when they run this report, they need to edit the report every single time they run the report, or they just bug you to do it. So if they want to compare year to date this year versus 2020 versus 2019, they've got to set the date range filter to be January 1st, 2021 to May 21st, 2021, or January 1st, 2020 to May 21st, 2020, or January 21st, 2019 to May 21st, 2019. And then every time they run the report, you have to edit this report filter every time you run the report. So the solution that I came up with to make this dynamic and not have to edit the report filter criteria every single time, I created a custom formula field on the opportunity that evaluates the opportunity close date and compares it to the current day of the year. And if the opportunity closed on or before this day of the year, the formula returns a true or a checkbox. If the opportunity closed after this day of the year, the formula returns a false or an unchecked checkbox. So to do this, I created a custom formula field on the opportunity object. And again, in this case, I was creating it on the opportunity, but this will work on nearly any standard or custom object. You can use it on cases, on leads, on custom object records. I created a custom formula field that returns a checkbox as the result. I used a function called today, a function called year, and another function called date, and a less than or equals to mathematic operator. So the today function, if you've never used it, it returns the current date. That's all it does. It returns the year, the month, the day of today's date. The year function returns the year from a date field or a date value. That's all it looks at the date field or the date value and just gives you the 4-digit number that makes up that year. The date function allows you to create a date value by providing it the year, the month, and the date. Just plug in those 3 numbers, year, month, date, you got yourself a date value. So I knew that I had to calculate the day of the year in order to do this. So I've seen a lot of people get burned by this when they're trying to calculate duration and things like that. They get messed up and they subtract the end from the start. But to get the duration, you actually have to flip them when you do your math. You subtract the earlier date from the later date. You subtract the start from the end. So if I wanted to get the day of the year, well, the year started on January 1st. Today is May 21st. So I subtract January 1st from May 21st, and I get the number 140. So that would work if I hard coded in those values, but I want to make this dynamic. So using today, I can get the current day. Today, May 21st. Tomorrow, May 22nd. The day after that, May 23rd. And I subtract my start date from today's date. Now, today will give me the number 140. Tomorrow will give me the number 141. The day after that, it will give me the number 142. So now moving on to the date function, using the date function, I can create a day for New Year's Day this year by providing 2021 for the year, 01 for January, and 01 for January 1st. For Christmas, I would provide 2021 for the year, 12 for the month, 25 for the day. Or for my birthday, 21 for the year, 6 for the month, and 11 for the day. That's great for 2021, but I don't want to have to update this formula every year and change 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023. I want this to be dynamic. So using the today function and the year function, I can make these formulas return January 1st this year, every year until the end of time. By wrapping a year function around the today function, I'm able to calculate what year today is, no matter what year it is until the end of time. Now this formula will return January 1st of every year, Christmas of every year, my birthday every year. So now our formula is truly dynamic. So to calculate the day of the year any year, I simply subtract January 1st of this year any year from today. Today it will give me the number 140. Tomorrow, the number 141. The day after that, 142. The day after that, 143. All the way until January 31st, December 31st. And then on January 1st, it will automatically reset to 1, 2, 3, 4. So how do we put this all to work? So we create a custom formula field on the opportunity object. And again, it could be cases, leads, accounts, custom objects. We select formula as our data type and checkbox as our result type. And here's our formula. We're calculating what day of the year the opportunity closed and what day of the year today is. And if the day of the year that the opportunity closed is less than or equal to the day of the year that the current day is, it's going to return a checked checkbox. Otherwise, it's going to return an unchecked checkbox. So looking at the first half of our formula, subtracting January 1st of the year the opportunity closed from the day the opportunity closed, if the opportunity closed on January 15th, 2020, this formula is going to give us the number 14. If the opportunity closed on November 28th, 2019, this formula is going to give us the number 331. Looking at the second half of our formula, where we're calculating what day of the year today is, we're subtracting January 1st of this year from today. Today it will give us the number 140. Tomorrow will give us the number 141. Looking at the complete formula now, if the opportunity closed on January 15th, that's going to give us the number 14. That is less than or equal to the number 140. So our formula is going to return a true or checked checkbox. If the opportunity closed on November 28th, that's day 331. That is not less than or equal to 140. The formula is going to return an unchecked checkbox, and it's going to continue to return an unchecked checkbox until we reach day 331 of this year. Then, without any manual intervention, this formula is automatically going to return a checked checkbox, and it's going to continue to return a checked checkbox until December 31st. And then on New Year's Eve, it's automatically going to reset and uncheck itself. So how do we use this? We take the exact same report that we started with, that one that we had to manually edit every single time we ran the report, and we replace all those and or filters that we had to manually update every single time we ran it, and we drag in our shiny new close date, year-to-date checkbox field and set the filter to the checkbox equals true or checked. That is our entire filter criteria. And now we can get a report like this. I can see side by side, year by year, what our sales were as of May 21st, 2021, 2020, 2019. And the next day, this report will automatically add one more day's worth of data. And it will keep doing that every single time I run the report, no matter what day it is, no matter what week it is, no matter what month it is, all the way to December 31st. And then without touching a single thing, this report will automatically reset back to day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. The formula checkbox field is doing all the filtering for you. It's doing all the work. You never have to update this report ever again. It's a simple but powerful formula checkbox field using some basic math. So this next one, I use this again in my own org to dynamically count the days until close. So I needed to create a report that would identify open upcoming opportunities, the revenue, and the stage that they're in, as well as expired or elapsed opportunities. And I needed this report to be dynamic. Just like the other report, I didn't want to have to edit that report every single time I ran it and fiddle around with the date ranges in the report. So I needed to dynamically calculate the number of days between the current date and the opportunity close date. Now, to do this, I created a custom formula field on the opportunity object. I used a function called if, a field called isClosed, and our old friend, the today function. Now, if you've ever created an opportunity stage or edited an opportunity stage as an admin, you'll notice that stage isn't just a plain vanilla pick list field. You can't just throw a new value in there and hit save and be done. When you create a new stage, Salesforce asks you a couple of other questions. What's the default probability of this stage? What's the default forecast category of this stage? And what type of stage is this? And there's only 3 choices in that pick list: open, closed won, and closed lost. Every stage, no matter how many stages you have, no matter how many record types you have, no matter how many sales processes you have, every stage is either open, closed won, or closed lost. And what Salesforce does when you as an admin define a stage as open, closed won, or closed lost, when a user picks that stage on an opportunity record, Salesforce behind the scenes sets two hidden fields, is closed and is won, to either true or false. Every stage is either closed or it's not closed. Every stage is either won or it's not won. And you can put those little hidden fields to work for you. And that's what we're going to do in this formula. I'm going to create a custom formula field on the opportunity object. And again, this would work on cases, really any object. I select formula as my data type and number as my result type. And here's my formula. I'm using a function called if, and if works on the if then else principle. If the condition that you provide is found, it then performs an action that you specify, or it does something else that you specify. So I'm saying if is closed equals false, meaning the opportunity is still open, subtract the close date, subtract today's date from the close date, giving me the number of days between today and the close date. If the opportunity is closed, then give me nothing as a result because it's closed. I don't want to keep counting. So here's our formula. If the close date is May 30th of 2021, this formula, when we run it right now, will give us the number 9. If the opportunity close date was May 1st, 2021, and the opportunity is still open, this formula will give us a negative 20. If the opportunity is closed, the formula is going to return nothing because the opportunity is closed. We don't care about how many days ago it closed or how many days it's due to close. So a word of advice, no matter how simple you think your formula is or how good you think you are at formulas, always create a report or a list view that shows all of the fields that your formula is evaluating side by side with your formula field and check the results. So I build my report or my list view, I look at my data, I can verify that my formula is working as it should. So now I can grab any opportunity report. I don't have to, and that's the cool thing about custom fields. The second you hit save, the field is automatically available in nearly every single standard report type of that object, including every existing report you've already built. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can grab any existing opportunity report that I have, and there's my shiny days until close field. I set my report filter criteria to opportunity status equals open. Then I create a report bucket. Now, here's the thing. I love report buckets, but they've got some limitations. One limitation for report buckets is that you cannot bucket by a date field. But our formula is not returning a date field. Our formula is returning a number field, a number value, and you can bucket by a number. So I grab my shiny new days until close field, I create a report bucket, and then I start bucketing. I start with negative 90 or less. Then I add another bucket, negative 90 to negative 60. Then I add another bucket for negative 60 to negative 30, negative 30 to 0, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and then 90 or greater. Then I make my report bucket that I just created a column grouping. Now I can get a report that looks like this. I can see my entire org's open opportunities in nice, neat 30-day increments in one report. Now, looking at the right side of the report, my open upcoming opportunities, I can see that I've got $1.2 million that's due to close within the next 30 days. That's great. But I can also see that almost $200,000 of this are in prospecting and qualification. Now, knowing how long it takes to close a deal, it's not really realistic that a deal would close within the next 30 days if it's still in prospecting or cultivation. So maybe I need to talk to those opportunity owners and find out if the stage needs to be updated or if the close date needs to be bumped out to something more realistic. Looking at the far right, I can see that I've got $2.4 million that's due to close 90 or more days out. And the cool thing is, this field that the buckets are built on is dynamic. With each day, with each week, with each month, the revenue that's in that 90 plus column is going to move closer and closer into the 60 to 90 bucket, into the 30 to 60 bucket, into the 0 and 30 bucket without any manual intervention, without changing the report filter criteria, the bucket definitions. This formula is dynamic, and so is this report. Now, looking over at the left-hand side of the report, my lapsed overdue buckets, I can see that I've got $520,000 that was supposed to have closed within the last 30 days, but it hasn't. So maybe I got to find out what's going on with that proposal. Maybe we need to resubmit it and bump that close date out. Find out what's going on with that negotiation. See if there's an issue with the contract and bump that close date out. But what really concerns me is this stack on the far left-hand side. I've got $1.1 million that is more than 90 days overdue. Instead of checking with the opportunity owner on the status of the opportunity, maybe I need to check on the status of the opportunity owner and make sure they're still alive. So next, I want to show you how to use checkboxes to test validation rule formula logic. So if you've ever created a formula, whether it's a validation rule, workflow rule, or process trigger, a formula field, in the formula editor, there's that check syntax button. So you build your formula, you click the check syntax button, you cross your fingers, you close your eyes. And when you open them, hopefully you see that green message instead of the red one. You've got no syntax errors. You're under the 5K compile size limit. Well, the problem is that that button only checks the syntax. It does not check your formula logic. And I may have flunked out of community college, but even I remember from basic algebra that A plus B in parentheses divided by C and A plus B divided by C in parentheses, while they're both syntactically correct, they will return completely different and in some cases potentially bad results. But there's no check logic button in the formula editor. So how do you test a validation rules formula logic? So validation rules are Boolean. Either they're true or they're false, a 0 or a 1, wax on, wax off. Well, checkboxes are also Boolean, just like validation rules. When you're writing a validation rule, you're really writing the criteria for what defines a bad record. If a validation rule evaluates a record and returns a true result, that means the record fails and the user is blocked from saving it. If the validation rule returns a false result, that means the record passes and the user is allowed to save it. So I was making a minor change to a pretty big validation rule in my org one day, and it had a lot of ands and ors and stuff like that. And I wanted to make sure that I got it right because it was on opportunities and it had some pretty big implications. And I just was not really sure that I had it. And I was looking at this validation rule, and then I was like, how do I test this thing? And so I came up with this little trick. So I created a custom field on the opportunity object, and I would create this on every single object in your Salesforce org. But you only need one of these fields on the object. You don't need one of these fields for every single validation rule. It's just something you use for a one-time final test of the logic before you deploy and activate the validation rule. So it's a custom field I called it validation rule test. The data type is formula. The result is checkbox. So suppose we ran that report for the open, upcoming, and lapsed overdue opportunities, and somebody said, all right, we've got to put a stop to this. We've got to create a validation rule that will block a user from creating or editing an open opportunity with a closed date in the past and saving it. We need to create a validation rule that only allows an open opportunity to be saved if the close date is in the future. But we've got people in shipping who need to be able to edit a closed opportunity and put in the tracking number or the shipping date, or people from accounts receivable who need to be able to put in the invoice number or the payment date. And if they edit a closed opportunity after the closed date and they try to hit save, they're going to get an error. They're not going to be able to do their job. So we want to exempt closed opportunities from this rule. So if the opportunity is won or lost, the record passes the validation rule. If the opportunity is open, but the close date is greater than or equal to today's date, the opportunity passes. If the opportunity is not closed, won, or lost, and the close date is less than today, the record will fail the validation rule. So how do we write this validation rule? Well, we could put that is closed checkbox field that I showed you earlier. We could write it like this: close dates less than today, is closed equals false. Unfortunately, you can't do that. Salesforce does not recommend using is closed or is won in a validation rule formula. So we could try writing it like this: the close date's less than today, and the stage is not closed won or closed lost. I happen to be an and or guy. Some people, they use the text function, or they'll use ampersands and pipes. There's a million ways that you could write this validation rule. So we want to test not only our syntax, but also our formula logic. So whichever way we choose to write this validation rule, we write our formula, but before we deploy it and activate it, we put it into our formula checkbox field. So we put in our formula, we check the syntax. There's no syntax errors. We're under the 5K compile size. So again, if this formula returns a true checkbox, that means that the record would fail if this was a validation rule. If this formula returns an unchecked checkbox, that means the record would pass the validation rule. So we check the syntax, we hit save, then we create a report or a list view that shows the fields that the formula is evaluating and our validation test checkbox field side by side, and we can see that we've got a problem. We've got closed won and closed lost opportunities. They're returning a true checkbox. That means that if this was a validation rule, the users shipping couldn't edit that record and put in the tracking number and save it. Accounts receivable couldn't put in the payment date or the invoice number. So there's a problem with my validation rules, and it's the same in both my validation rules. And the problem is not my syntax, it's my logic. I used the word or. And when I put the word or around the closed won and closed lost, I created a loop from which no user could ever escape. See, opportunity stage is a pick list field, not a multi-select pick list field. You can only pick one thing. So when the user picked closed won, they were doomed to fail because they didn't also pick closed lost. And had they picked closed lost, they were doomed to fail because they didn't also click closed won. The only way they could have done it was if they had two monitors, two mice, and clicked closed won and closed lost at the exact same time, or the user is Schrodinger's cat, in which case all bets are off. So how do we fix this? We go back to our formula, we remove the or clause and wrap the whole thing inside of a single and. If the close date is less than today, and the opportunity is not closed won, and the opportunity is not closed lost, the user is blocked from saving it. Or using ampersands, we would write it like this. So now we go back to our formula checkbox. We put in our updated formula. We check the syntax. And again, true means the record will fail the validation rule. False means the record will pass the validation rule. Now we go back to our list view or our report, and we can see that the only records with a checkbox are the ones that should have a checkbox. Open opportunities with a close date in the past. Now we can activate this validation rule, and we can know that the shipping can do their job. Accounts receivable can do their job. But opportunity owners can't create or edit an opportunity that's open with a close date in the past. It's just a simple formula checkbox field. And again, all you need is one of these on the object, and you can just reuse it anytime you need to create or update an existing validation rule. Now, some caveats: not every function that is available in a validation rule formula is supported by formula fields. So you can't use the is new function, the is change function, prior value, VLOOKUP, or regex. So if your validation rule does use those functions, you'll need to either remove them or comment them out, but you could test the rest of your logic. Or in the example that we just did, it doesn't have any of those functions. We can test the whole thing in the formula checkbox field and drop it right into production. So last, I want to show you how I created some simple sales versus goal reports and dashboards. And I did it by repurposing standard objects instead of reinventing the wheel. So a long time ago, I was given a project and I had to create or figure out a way to record our sales or targets and be able to deliver reports and dashboards that would show our goal attainment by user, by account, by product, by month. And I had to do it using standard Salesforce reports and dashboards. When I had to do this, this was back in 2006. Joined reports were not even a thing. Report cross-filtering was not even a thing. Even with custom report types, I couldn't get a single report or dashboard that could do this comparison side by side. And among the requirements I was given was that there were 3 separate types of target. For inside sales and business development managers, they would be given a goal or quota just based on them for the month, for the quarter, for the year. And at the beginning of the year, we don't even know who they might be selling to in May, July, August, September. That account might not even be an account at that point. They might not even be a lead at that point. They might not even be in our Salesforce org. But we need to assign a goal for that user. Other users in client services, they are aligned with an account, and we need to assign a goal for growth and renewal for that account and assign it to that user. And another set of users are given a goal purely by the product that they support. It's not linked to an account. It's not linked to a lead. The goal is linked to that product. And I need to be able to do this, again, using native Salesforce reports and dashboards. Oh, and by the way, I don't write code, so that's a deal breaker. So to solve this, I knew that I had to leverage native Salesforce objects and infrastructure. So I did it by repurposing the standard Salesforce opportunity object. And I did it by creating separate opportunity record types for sales and for quota. So I created separate record types, separate page layouts, and separate processes, because I knew that for a goal, a lot of the things that apply to a sale aren't required for a goal. So I took the opportunity page layout. I took our sales page layout and I stripped it down to the bare bones, leaving only the absolute minimum that I needed to record the opportunity quota. Every non-essential field I pulled off the page layout. So things like discount, custom fields, primary contact, the status, anything that I could get off of the page layout, I removed. And in doing this, I noticed something. The account name field on the opportunity object, you can't remove it from the page layout, but you can make it optional. And this was a key piece when I was building this, because remember, one of the requirements I had was that inside sales and business development managers, the company that they're selling to might not be known at the beginning of the year when their quota for the year gets assigned. That company might not be an account. That company might not even be a lead. So I needed to figure out a way to assign a quota to that person without linking it to something that doesn't even exist in our org. So I made, on a quota opportunity, the account name is an optional field. So I removed everything that wasn't essential, and here is my stripped down opportunity quota page layout. Then I created a separate opportunity sales process for quotas with one stage. I called the stage quota. I set the default probability to 0, forecast category to omitted, and type to closed loss, because I wanted to make sure that if this opportunity found itself into a report and somebody didn't filter it properly, that quota revenue wouldn't be automatically over-reported as sales revenue. So I created my quota sales process with one stage only, quota. And here's my new quota opportunity. Account name is optional. I simply put in, if the quota is for an account, I can look up the account and assign the quota to the account. I put in the close date, the day that the date, year, quarter, month that this quota number is for, the quota amount. The stage defaults to quota. Now I've got my quota. I've assigned it to a user. This is a standard Salesforce opportunity. It behaves just like an opportunity. I can add products to this quota. I can add a sales team to this quota. Now I grab any standard Salesforce opportunity report, and I simply group the report by opportunity record type. And now side by side, this is a standard Salesforce opportunities with products report. And I can see side by side what each user's quota is and what their actual sales are side by side. This isn't a joined report. This isn't BI. I haven't written any custom code. Now, after I built this, then along came report formulas, and I wanted to take advantage of them. And so to make my life a little bit easier, I did create a couple of custom formula fields to make report formula writing a little bit easier. I created 2 custom fields on the opportunity object. Both are formula fields. Both return a currency as the result type. And one isolates the revenue if the opportunity is a sales opportunity. Now, I've got multiple sales opportunities, by the way. So I simply used an if statement to say, if this is not a quota opportunity, return whatever dollar amount is in the standard opportunity amount field. Otherwise, return a 0. Then I created another field called dollar amount quota. If the opportunity record type is a quota, then return whatever is in the opportunity amount field. Otherwise, return a 0. Now I can create a report summary formula that calculates what that user's quota attainment is. And again, this is a standard Salesforce opportunities with products report. This isn't custom report types. This isn't a third-party BI tool. And I can see side by side what our sales versus our quota is by account, by product, by quarter. I can create a dashboard like this using standard plain vanilla Salesforce reports and dashboards. And I did it all by repurposing a standard object, opportunity products. And I want to say thank you once again to our incredible sponsors. Thanks a lot.